So we created these fields out of forests. So we cut trees, we're building the soil, but we're trying to grow with Mother Nature in mind, what we call ecological gardening. So if we have questions, we go in the forest and see how the situation is there. We see diversity, we see animals, we see all kinds of these complex system, all parts of this complex system. So when we fenced these fields off to keep the moose out, we realized we're also excluding part of that healthy, holistic system. And so what we do, we turn the animals, our sheep and goats, into the field to help with crop residue there. So this field was finished, harvested last week, and the animals are going out there and they're eating up, but they're also crimping down. And crimping just means knocking things down so that they're on the surface of the soil. So they're a very important part of the system. Even though you're only growing in this certain season, you've got to think about the whole year. So like we were talking about the crop residue sitting there feeding the microorganisms. Well, here we have the animals in there making sure that they're breaking down the larger stuff. Any of the manure that they drop here, it'll be 7 months before we are back in the field processing, getting the soil ready again. So from a health safety standards, that manure is all composted and taken care of, so we don't have to worry about contamination or anything like that. So all these little factors come together into creating a healthy soil. What this grant has really helped us do is look at what we are doing from a laboratory standard. So we have soil tests, biological tests, and we've been able to really get a better understanding. We certainly don't have all the answers yet, but we're definitely learning a lot more about the biology of the soils here in Alaska. It's October, and most of our crops are out of the field. So what we're looking at here is crop residue and how we think about the soil year round. When you're building soil, you can't just think about putting compost on and being done. We're trying to grow a healthy living soil, and those microorganisms need food year round. Obviously in the cold of winter, they are more in a torpid state where they're not as active, but you'd be really surprised how much activity we do see in the soil. So right down here, this was a crop early on in the season, and midway through we harvested the crop. I believe this was lettuce here. And then we have planted some peas in here. So this is cover cropping on a very different scale than at Steve Masterman's orchard, but still we're trying to have living organisms in the soil. It's really important for those microorganisms to have living roots. Roots exude sugars and allow that interaction of the organisms with all those soil particles. So you saw in the forest, we had a thin organic layer over the silt. Well, this is, see how nice and easy that knife goes down there? That's what some people would use the word tilth to describe. Its soil is nice and airy, but it has some aggregates in there. And that's what's really important about these cover crop roots, is when I pull out these plants, you can see that aggregates attach to the roots. And even here, we have some of those nodules that are showing that this is actively nitrogen fixing. So again, we are growing vegetable crops here, but we are really trying to grow a healthy soil. If we can grow a healthy soil, we can keep plants healthy, and they can compete well against weeds. They can also if they're healthier, there's less pest problems because they can sustain a little bit of damage from pests. An unhealthy soil, you have stress, and then the plants will stress and invite more pests in there. So that's at least our philosophy. So if you look here, as I dig down, it's still mostly this nice dark soil, heavy organic matter. And as I get down there, still this finger digging, I can feel the texture changing. The color changes a little bit, probably not noticeable on the camera, but as we get down there, it's getting a little browner. And here we go. Now, we do not till this soil with a tiller. We use a broad fork, so we are trying not to mix this top surface with down below, because this is Alaska. We have very cold soils. And here we go, we start getting into the silt down there, but you can see it's stained with organic matter. So we've really been building up the organic matter over, well, this is about 18 years on this field here. Part of this study is to learn how we can better build our compost and build these soils. And some of the sites that we are working with are brand new sites. Maybe they're growing in a greenhouse. Maybe they're growing in raised boxes. So all of these different situations need different attention to details there. So here we have this nice soil getting down to that parent material down there, and these soils are nice and healthy. We are very limited by water here, and compost is important because it helps hold the moisture in the soil. With just that silt soil, water moves right on through. It gets wet and then it's gone. And that means the nutrients too, and the life of the soil is very up and down. So with compost, we build a more balanced system. There's nutrients, there's microorganisms, there's water, and we can keep this soil healthy and growing and cycling nutrients. And then we can plant our different crops in here. And we don't have to play chemist and be like, oh, this crop likes these, this plant likes this. We know that we have a healthy, robust soil. And then we watch our plants as our main soil indicator. We do a lot of soil sampling, but really the plant and the plant health can tell us a lot about the soils. You can see behind me here, this was kohlrabi that was harvested, which is a broccoli family there. And what we've done here is we've just thrown the leaves on the bed. What's miraculous is over the winter, we will have a couple feet of snow over this bed. And in the springtime, we will not find much left of this crop residue. So even though it's cold and snowy, there's still a lot of life in the soil, and this is promoting the life in the soil. We're making sure that they have food during the winter. It's slow decomposition, but it's still decomposition. It keeps them there, healthy, fed, and then in the spring, when we bring more compost on, we're just adding to the soil. We're not starting from scratch. In this study, we've been trying to learn more about the biology of the soil. I could tell you about particle size, pH, and the chemistry of the soil, but what we don't understand much about is the biology of the soil. What are the organisms? Are they macroorganisms, microorganisms? Where do they live in our cold soils? You know, at depth, this soil is cold. So we don't want to mix that topsoil where we have all of the nice organisms and stir them down into the cold depths. That's why we use broad forking, which we can loosen our soils but not mix them. But how do we feed these organisms? Where do they go during the different parts of the year? So let's go look at some of the different ways we've been building compost and been studying this compost using this grant as a means to understand what's going on.